Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey, what's up everybody? Alex from SeemsGoodMagic.com here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod. Jake and I talk about Standard in this episode. All things the new Standard. Innistrad block has rotated, so we're going to talk about what we think Theros is going to add, what kind of archetypes we're likely to see in these events coming up shortly here. So excited to find out what that is. And we talk about what decks we're specifically going to play. So I hope you enjoy that. The Mortarpod is brought to you by Verencamp.com, VEHRENKAMP.com. Scott designs SeemsGoodMagic.com. He did a great job on that. He also is currently working on our board game. So I have a lot of faith in his ability. I like what he does. So I recommend checking out his website, his portfolio, if you'd like to use him for web design work. Check out SeemsGoodMagic.com if you have not already. It's my website where I'm going to post all the future Theros videos, but I've posted all the draft videos that have been submitted to me by fans, my personal ones, fellow SeemsGoodMagic members. So it's been a lot of fun. Check out those videos. I've also been starting to record real-life events. So those have been going over fairly well on YouTube, so you can check those out on our YouTube channel. Yeah, I'm going to cut it short on the intro for this episode, so enjoy Jake and I's talk about our decks, and yeah, I'm excited to see what Theros does to Standard. See you later. Ready to talk about some Standard, Jake?
Sure.
All right. So Theros is officially released now. Over the weekend, and Jake and I got a chance to record a video of our draft decks and results and stuff, so I think I'm going to try and make a habit of that. That was kind of fun, actually.
That was fun.
And if you want to watch the video for that, it's at SeemsGoodMagic.com, and it's just entitled Theros Release Draft. So check that one out. I think that's what it's called, something like that. Theros Release Draft is the first three words anyway. But anyway, we wanted to talk about what we're going to play in Standard Constructed. So I think I'm going to start with Red Deck Wins, Theros Release Draft Report. And it's only a 10-minute video. But I wanted to talk about what I'm going to play in Standard, so I'm going to try Red Deck Wins. And I'll go through my list, and Jake is going to talk about his Esper control list. He's at least going to have something similar to it.
I mean, it'll pretty much be similar, or very similar, but might make a few changes.
So why don't we just take a look quick at the Red Deck Wins. That one's always really simple to do. So I was taking a look at stuff at MTG Salvation, and we saw some pretty good choices. I had come up with something pretty similar, but you know, you look long enough and you see some ideas that you didn't think of before. So I guess the newest card that would be in addition to it from Theros would be this Fire Drinker Satyr. So Jake and I evaluated this card pretty low on the totem pole.
Yeah, I think we were a little harsh on it. And mostly because of Jackal Pup in general, like being an uncommon, and I just don't really like this deal damage to you ability that it has. Either one of them needed to go, in my opinion. One part of that needed to be off of this card. But in the end, I mean, it's very good for Red Deck Wins.
It's fast.
Yeah.
Some of the other one-drops to consider. Obviously, a staple of the deck is going to be the Rakdos Cackler from Return to Ravnica. Definitely a necessity when it comes to Red Deck Wins. This was even good and limited too. So
this is just a really great card.
Yeah, it is.
I love the art.
It's a good card, and it's a devil. It's a one hybrid black and red 1/1 with Unleash. So showing some of that Rakdos efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Quickly, I mean, it was played in standard, even pre-rotation,
Yeah.
so staple of the aggro strategy. Legion Loyalist is another one, not in every, I think it is at this point going to be in all the new lists, but
Yeah.
it's 1 red, 1/1 haste goblin soldier with battalion. Creatures you control gain first strike, trample, and can't be blocked by creature tokens this turn, which in standard currently is useful against Young Pyromancer, Advent of the Worm, Voice of Resurgence, and probably not too much beyond that. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's more token producers.
Yeah, I mean, other than Elspeth, but at that time you should have already won, kind of, is the feeling on that.
Actually, having that protection against Elspeth still feels really good, though, and relevant.
It is not, yeah, it is true.
If
they
were,
can't just rely on Elspeth to stabilize.
Yep.
With the creature tokens against aggro, so.
That's cool. Burning Tree Emissary, of course, quickly became my favorite card, I would say, in my Nigh-Human Blitz deck by the end. I just absolutely fell in love with this card. It's amazing. I severely underrated it when it first came out. I wasn't that impressed, considering it's pretty much a grizzly bear that is a free grizzly bear. But you really want something else. I mean, 2 mana, 2/2, and then theoretically use the 2 mana to cast another 2-drop. Sometimes you get lucky and you get a chain of Burning Tree Emissaries, which is
even 2 Burning Trees and 1 other creature is ridiculous.
Devastating. Yeah. I think it was like the Burning Tree, Fire Fist Striker. I was getting that by the end of my Human Blitz, especially with because that deck ran the first turn Champ of the Parish. So then it just literally went completely over the top of giving a deck a chance to do anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just literally did not give a chance.
Yeah, that was really brutal. Burning Tree is a really brutal card, or was at least.
And
pans out this time.
Yeah, we'll see. I still think it's going to be really good.
I think it's good.
I think you kind of had convinced me a little bit that it was better in the Human Blitz list because I was running Mayor and I was running. I mean, you could
having Champ and the flawless mana that you got
with
back
Cavern,
then,
and the Shock and the Corset lands.
Yeah, and the untapped lands, any of them, because you got the Innistrad ones too. So you still had Clifftop as well.
True.
Yeah, the fact that you could go first turn white mana source, any of them, it could be Temple Garden or
Sacred Foundry or Cavern,
and get your Champ out. Then second turn, it did not matter what you played because you were going to have an untapped land, and just bring out a Burning Tree and 1 other creature, and that's already giving you a 3/3 on turn 2, and then hopefully your 2 other 2/2s. So it's a very good card.
It is. Burning Tree is almost assuredly going to be in any of. I almost assure you it's going to be in every aggro list we're seeing that's running green or red. It's really that powerful. Fire Fist Striker, just quickly, we had talked about that, but Fire Fist Striker is from Gatecrash. 2 mana, 2/1 human soldier with battalion. When it and at least 2 other creatures attack, target creature can't block this turn. So very cool card. Obviously strong. Really important now against the Loxodon Smiters, against the Boros Reckoners, against what else is it probably important against? What are some more really good blockers we're going to have to see?
Omen Speaker.
I guess even that Yoke Docs strategy out of the sideboard for the Esper control. It's nice to be able to not even worry about that. I just think Fire Fist Strikers is really good. So plays really well. Played really well in Limited. Still plays very well in Constructed. And by the end was I believe, 4 of in the Human Blitz list.
Yeah, I think so too.
Very important. Ash Zealot. This is actually a card I never even got an opportunity to play because I was never playing Red Deck Wins at the time, but it's a cool card. 2 mana, 2/2, first strike haste. Whenever a player casts a spell from a graveyard, Ash Zealot deals 3 damage to that player. Currently, completely irrelevant ability. I'm trying to think of any ability that you cast.
Cast a spell from a graveyard.
There might be one, like a creature that you can cast from the graveyard or something.
Maybe.
But I'm pretty sure the ability for the most part.
Yeah, it was mostly to host flashback. And this is, in my opinion, very similar to what they did with Soldier of the Pantheon. That is against Return to Ravnica block, not really in block.
I see. That's a good point. So this was technically a card that was geared at hosing flashback spells. But the nice thing about it, even without that ability, it's still a very relevant spell.
Yeah.
2 mana, 2/2 first strike haste. Excellent ability mashup. Lets you attack in a lot of the time. As a friend who plays Red Deck Wins pointed out, also really good alongside Shock.
Mm-hmm.
You get to attack into like the likes of Smiter, deal your first strike damage, then shock it, and you pretty much just traded a shock for your Smiter, which is always a deal that Red Deck wants to take.
Yep.
So really cool card. I'm excited to try her out. I have a feeling she's very good. Chandra's Phoenix. It's an old one, actually. How many core sets ago? It was in M12. Okay. So it's a 3 mana 2/2 flying haste. Whenever an opponent is dealt damage by a red instant or sorcery spell you control, or by a red planeswalker you control, return Chandra's Phoenix from your graveyard to your hand. So definitely good with your burn spells. I was telling Jake, I think I maybe once have had the red planeswalker deal damage to me so that they could return it. It's very, very seldom that happens.
Yeah.
But Chandra's Phoenix is an important card. Obviously, we still have Supreme Verdict in Standard, and it's a nice little way around that. As Jake will probably mention and is going to play eventually, the new Slagstorm, however,
just totally gets around this.
Exiles the Chandra's Phoenix. So unfortunately, you don't get quite that value that you want up against that. But I'm unsure yet if we're going to look at Grixis Control, if that's going to exist, or if it's going to be some sort of red-white control maybe.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of hoping that red-white control will come. Something will come of it.
Maybe America again too, logically. America seems to be a pretty popular archetype in the last couple standards, even when they were different decks. It's just a color mashup that gives you access to a lot of different value spells.
Yeah, it's true.
Rubblebelt Maka is one that I didn't think up on my own. This was actually in the primer that I looked at. But if you remember this from Dragon's Maze, it was a 4 mana 3/3 cat creature with Blood Rush for 1 red, so it gives +3/+3. I definitely see the importance of it in the list, why you would want to play it, especially in something as hyper-aggressive as this. It's nice. Either they're not blocking, or so it's a lightning bolt, or you need it as a combat trick. Once again, another way around the smiter, and like even Advent to the Worm, you maybe on an Ash Zealot or something.
Ash Zealot.
So there's some.
Actually, even a Cackler, I feel like I would trade that.
Sometimes sometimes you have to 2-for-1 to get rid of it. I mean, Red Deck Wins is so suicidal.
Yeah, Red Deck is criminally weak to the two for one. As far as they have to 2-for-1 a lot of big threats to even deal with them.
Because they're just in such a rush to win, and they've geared every single piece of efficiency in doing that. So Lightning Strike is the new Searing Spear. So just 2 mana 3. Yep. Yeah. Definitely, in my opinion, a complete staple of Red Deck Wins.
Yeah.
Very important that they have their efficient burn spells. We also have Shock from Core Set. Unfortunately, kind of an unexciting one, to say the least. It's always kind of a disappointment when you have to play your Shocks, but I still think it's still important.
Yeah.
It still fills an important role. And then we've got Magma Jet, which I am going to try as a 2 of right away. Maybe add more later. Maybe I want 4 of it. That's tough. I gotta mess with some numbers. Like, I could maybe see 3 Legion Loyalists and then 3 Magma Jet or something like that. Because you really only need... The thing is about Legion Loyalists, you usually only need 1. Once you have your 1, it gets a little bit redundant and weak. But I might consider something like that. That would actually be kind of cool. That's a good removal suit, too. And you want at least, 10, 11 ways to bring back your Chandra's Phoenix, too.
Yeah, that actually is probably better.
So Magma Jet, of course, I've never gotten a chance to play this, but I thought it was a very important card when it was out. It's a 2 mana, 2 damage instant to any target. It lets you scry too. So as we discovered when we were searching through the spoilers, Red seemed to have gotten a lot of good scry spells.
Yeah, just a ton of them.
It did appear that blue and red were the main scry colors. You have that new Jolt spell, which is 1 mana, 1 damage, scry 1.
I really like that one, actually. But
there's Titan Strength as well, which I had initially put in the deck, but I think ultimately I wasn't going to do it. There's still some weird possibilities, like the Young Pyromancer thing. I wasn't necessarily... I was actually really kind of for Young Pyromancer originally in the deck. We saw some lists that were doing Dynacharge. I would think Dynacharge and Young Pyromancer would be best friends. If you're going to try something like that,
Yeah.
then you might as well just be running a lot of burn spells
Mhm.
and then Young Pyromancer and Dynacharge or something.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of unusual thing about Young Pyromancer, I would say, is you don't really want to run Young Pyromancer with a lot of creatures. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it kind of functions better on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what would be a cool deck is something like Gutter Snipe, Young Pyromancer,
Yeah.
and then a bunch of burn spells and like...
Mm-hmm.
I could see something like that.
That would
where
make
you're
a
just,
lot more sense.
Yeah, because then you have and then even maybe Chandra's Phoenix, so like 12,
Yeah.
12
Yeah.
creatures, and
Yeah.
then
Want
a
you
full
to do
set of
stuff with those spells, yeah.
and then 28 burn spells if you can make
Mhm.
that work. For sideboard, I was kind of debating around with this whole Mindsparker. Oh, Mindspaker. That doesn't work. Mindsparker is from M14, 3 mana, 3/2, first strike, elemental. Kind of a weird picture. Do you know what's going on in that? Can you identify that?
So I'm assuming those are books, and this looks like an appendage, and this looks like an appendage, and this looks like kind of the mid, and that looks like an appendage.
Oh,
I
no,
guess-
you're right. No,
and
I
then
finally
this is like
see
the
it.
mouth
I see it now.
and a face is kind of how I view it. And then he's just looks like he's just terrorizing a library.
No, I think you're absolutely right. That, for the life of me, I could not.
I thought that this up here was his face for a long time, and I had a really hard time figuring it out.
I could
And
not
let me just point
identify-
out the mouse. This up
Yeah.
here is what I was talking about.
I could not identify this spell, though. So for audio listeners, like Jake said, it looks like it's inside of a library. There's books flying everywhere, and then it's just a very odd-looking lightning elemental-ish thing. But 3 mana, 3/2, first strike, and whenever an opponent casts a white or blue instant or sorcery spell, it deals 2 damage to that player. So what are your opinions about this card? Do you think it'll be a decent sideboard card, or am I kind of overvaluing it?
No, I think it's a fine sideboard card for red deck wins.
Let's see what they're doing a little bit. They're doing some Burning Earth. Probably makes sense. Finding some space for that.
Actually, that one makes a lot of sense.
Mizium Mortars, I think, is one that I agree with. You probably want that out of sideboard.
Against their Lockdown Smiters, for sure.
Pyromaster, I'm not really sure I'm behind that necessarily. I actually really like so Mortars, Burning Earth, Active Treason, I think, is very important now that we've lost Traitorous Blood, and we still have Traitorous Instinct, and we have this new Portent of Betrayal. The difference between 3 and 4 mana for a 19 or 20 land deck is substantial.
Yeah.
Yep, so Active Treason, I think, is actually the correct choice. We also have Skullcrack, which I think is an important sideboard card. Really stop that Sphinx's Revelation. You want to be able to make sure they don't gain the life if they're going to get the cards.
Yeah.
Burning Earth, I think, is actually absolutely an important one, so I understand the value in that. Flames of the Firebrand, looking like a pretty interesting one. Peak Eruption, I'm not really getting behind. Let's see, anything else on sideboard? I guess Hammer of Perforos is technically a sideboard option you have against control. I think the question is that card really what you want to be doing? Is it fast enough? I mean, it does give you haste, guys, which is relevant.
One enough?
I mean, it's at least worth a try. I admit I can't accurately, evaluate that card until I play it.
Everybody else haste, at the very least.
It's a cool card, at the very least. I'm just curious if it's enough value at its speed to beat a control list. You know what I mean? You're paying mana
and
to
you
bring
lose
it
the
down.
land.
And
yeah.
Well, you pay your initial mana to play it, so it did nothing to kill your opponent. So your plan is to ride out that Hammer of Perforos, right? I mean, keep in mind these Esper control lists or the blue-white we're going to see are going to have plenty of answers for it.
But you can ride out one golem at a time, too. And then not bring out more until their end step. So
I feel like
they can't do Supreme Verdict on your new one or whatever.
It's cool. I just, personally right now, I feel like it's going to be just under par of speed to be able to keep up with your opponent chaining Sphinx's Revelations, your opponent doing nasty Aetherling things that you're unhappy about, like keeping your Aetherling back to like block your Golem, and then if you try and burn
is
it.
just like the ultimate fuck you to every deck.
It is.
Like
Aetherling is something that you really need to be conscious of because that's going to be a heavy hitting control
that
card.
card could have been a mythic, in my opinion. I mean, I guess it's all about limited with mythic rarity, but that one in particular was just so brutal. And it's totally devastating. There's not much you can do against it.
So that's pretty much where I'm at with red deck wins. I won't go through my entire Boros list or White Weenie list, but Jake had sort of helped me with something along the lines of that. And I can just briefly name the cards. I'm not going to go through individually, but it was like Dryad Militant, the new Soldier of the Pantheon. There was even another 1-power or 2-power 1-drop that I can't even think of right now. But that deck was really okay. It was just under par. I think the most exciting aspect of that is that Brave the Elements is currently in Standard, and I used to play White Weenie when that was in Standard in Zendikar, and it was a fun deck. It definitely did a lot of work. It goes a long way. Doesn't do anything against Supreme Verdict, however, I like what it does against the new Slagstorm. I like what it does against the really good removal suit that's available now. I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot. There's the Putrefy. There's the new Instant Speed Dreadbore in black. The new Murder, you could say, or whatever. There's, I think even Warp Devotion is probably going to eventually see some...
Warp Physique.
Yeah, Warp Physique is going to see some constructed play. Like maybe. We have Doomblade back, which was gone for an entire core set. So spot removal right now is really excellent, I think.
There's a very large choice, I guess, like a large amount of choices.
Yes. And Shock, we just talked about in this list too. So it's nice for 1 mana to give something important protection. I think I was just a little bit underwhelmed by it. I didn't quite feel like it could get there in just white. And then looking at the Boros list made me kind of unhappy with the mana base. Because currently we're looking at Sacred Foundry, Gale Gate, and the come into play tapped Scrylands. That there are currently there's 5 of them, or?
Yep, 5 different ones.
So 5 of the guilds are missing. Which ones are the missing ones?
The Return of Ravnica guilds are missing right now.
Okay, so Zorius, and Izzet, and Selesnya, and Golgari,
and
Rakdos are the ones that you don't have access to right now. Something to keep in mind. That's probably important because these new temple cards are going to see play. The question is, where do they start getting too clunky? Can you go beyond 4? Like we're going to look at a list that's running 6
total,
and that seems like a lot.
It really does. When you think of you have no control over, I mean, and that's control too. So your Shocklands are like a liability too.
You don't want to
come in untapped.
You don't want to take that 2 damage from it. Definitely. So that's all I've got for red deck wins. Jake, I'm going to let you sort of take the reins on Esper Control. Why don't you just guide us through? This is actually perfect. I'm giving the most aggro list, and Jake will probably give at least the most, if not the most, really good control option. So I think it's that far left one.
Okay.
So this is Jared Bedecker, or Botcher's list.
Yeah. And this was just from today, it looks like. This is actually a deck tech from StarCityGames.com. He's running 3 Syncopate, 2 Dissolve, 2 Hero's Downfall, which is the new Dreadbore that's instant speed, 2 Doomblade, 1 Far Away, 1 Blind Obedience, 4 Azorius Charm, 4 Supreme Verdict, 3 Detention Sphere, 3 Sphinx's Revelation, 4 Jace, Architect of Thought, 3 Ashiok, Nightmare Weaver, and 2 Elspeth, Sun's Champion. And so you'll notice right away that this is a creatureless control deck. 4 Godless Shrine, 4 Watery Grave, 4 Hallowed, so full 12 of the Shocklands in those colors. 3 Temple of Silence, 3 Temple of Deceit, 1 Azorius Guildgate, presumably because he doesn't have the white-blue temple yet. 4 Island, 2 Plains, and 1 Swamp round out his basics. So it's cool that people are going to have to start playing basics again. Because I think at the end, people just weren't. And you could be 3-color and not play any basics.
It looks, just right off the bat with the mana base, this does look very susceptible to Burning Earth right now.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But the thing about it is that you should be able to counter a Burning Earth or Detention Spirit. Detention Spirit being the least good option, I guess. You definitely don't want to Detention Spirit, but you can. Yeah, and out of the board, there's not really any more added, except for the Thought Seizes. I think Thoughtseize is great in the sideboard. Other people, I know that a guy at our store is going to be playing them main deck for Thoughtseize main deck, which I think is risky in the early,
With red deck.
yeah, the early point of standard, or early few phases of standard, because it's just so, you don't know how aggressive it can get. And we're all expecting it to slow down, but that doesn't mean that it can't be aggressive still out the gate. He's playing 3 Yoke Docks, which it's a good defender. It stops stuff.
You had mentioned, why was that not Omen Speaker?
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's running 7 coming to play tapped lands. So it's nice to be able to play a tap land turn 1 and then tap land turn 2 plus good blocker.
Yeah. And that means you never have to pay the 2 life to get your Omen Speaker out on turn 2. You can still just bring out the Yoke Docks. It is still a kind of a funny,
Yeah, I was surprised, yeah.
It's sad that there's nothing else that can fit this slot, but I understand, I guess. 3 Glare of Heresy, which is a great way to remove detention spheres. Elspeth's and Voice. Also, Heliod is white, so you can get rid of him that way. This is exile target white permanent at instant speed for 2 mana. Essence Scatter is obviously just a counter target creature spell for 2. Last Breath is another way to get rid of Voice. Their life gain doesn't really matter. I suppose in a pinch late game, if you have Elspeth and tokens out, you can Last Breath your own guy for 4 life. But for a control deck, to give somebody else life gain is pretty much a moot point. Here, have some life. It doesn't matter. And then 1 more detention sphere out of the board. So I would probably change the sideboard around a little bit. I really am not a fan of Yoke Docks. And I might not even be willing to play Esper if that's kind of the options. I might rather go into America because of access to
The new Slagstorm.
the new Slagstorm, which is, I've just been waiting for a good Slagstorm or Pyroclasm effect in Standard for a while now, and I'm glad they finally gave us one.
Do you think you could make that mana base good enough?
I would feel better about that one because I guess I'd have access to more 1-mana removal spells, because you can play Chain to the Rocks in that build.
And even Magma Jet in that deck feels really important and good.
Yeah. So I'm not 100% sure. I really want to just see. I do have full playset of Temple of Deceit right now, and that's kind of why I wanted to do a blue-black deck. But, I really like Slagstorm effect.
I like that it had Far and Away. That's cool. I think
surprised that it's a 1-of.
Yeah, I think it's a very powerful card.
Yeah, I feel like this could have been a 2-of. Get rid of this Blind Obedience maybe. Blind Obedience is nice to gain you life back though, but as a 1-of, how much does it affect anything? Also good against red deck wins if they're haste.
Were you surprised? I think we were both a little bit surprised there's no Aetherling in this list.
Yeah, that one was something that we both talked about earlier, yeah.
I don't know why that is.
I know. I can't imagine. Aetherling, the times that I've played Aetherling, and I love Control, there was no way my opponent could stop me once I got the Aetherling out if I had already stabilized before Aetherling. Obviously, if they're just going to run you over with multiple creatures, then the Aetherling means nothing. But if you had already established control earlier, or coming into turn 4 or 5, you were in control, then the Aetherling on turn 8 is going to pretty much crush them if you're on turn 8. If that's possible, I guess. That means a land drop every turn, but blue decks usually don't have a problem doing that.
Would you do 4 of Jace? I feel like that's kind of bold.
I think the reason is because there's no good instant speed card draw anymore. So just using your Jace as a eat an attack card draw machine is good.
You mean besides the Revelation or whatever?
Right, and what I mean is early.
Yeah, because there was Think Twice.
Think Twice plus Azorius Charm. So now you only have Azorius Charm and Sphinx's Revelation, really. So I think that's why Jace has started to come back. Because I don't think anyone played Jace for a long time.
This deck looks really solid.
Yeah.
I don't like the Ashiok. I'm still not sold on that in Constructed.
Yeah,
I'm very surprised by it.
I think it's because it goes up to 5 on turn 3, and they have to start dealing with it at that point. It can also remove threats before you have to deal with them, and it's permanent removal.
I'm not 100% convinced that they have to deal with it. I think that's my problem with Ashiok.
Oh, okay.
You're right that it gets big. I'm just not sure that the hyper-aggressive strategies are necessarily going to be worried about it going to 5 or even want to take it out.
I guess if you get one creature off of it and then use Supreme Verdict the following turn, you get that creature, So you can, really shut down an aggro deck by stealing their creature and having it out on the next turn. God forbid you, reveal 2 or 3 cheap creatures where you can use this turn after turn,
How does it work? You don't steal with it, right? I thought
you exile the top 3
with the plus,
with
right?
+2.
Okay.
And then -X, you get to put any card with
exile.
Yeah, any creature card exiled with that converted mana cost onto the battlefield under your control, and it's a nightmare in addition to its other types.
So it doesn't technically do anything besides get big on the first turn you play it. That's really all it's doing is creating a meat shield that's significant on turn 3. So the fact that, in my opinion, it can't steal a creature until the second turn you have it out, and only if in the top 3.
It's not guaranteed steal a creature either.
Yeah. So there are some very narrow aspects to it.
But it is still a kill condition in and of itself, as the Drown Yard that you play.
What's the ultimate on it again?
Useless. It's -10 for they exile their graveyard and their library. Or graveyard and library. Graveyard and hand.
That's the old Jace one.
Yeah.
Exile cards from opponents' hands and graveyards. Yeah. So
it's good in multiplayer though. Exile all cards from all opponents' hands and graveyards.
I'm just still not convinced on this card. But I mean, maybe I'm the one that's wrong, but I really don't think so. I really think this is not good enough. I'm interested to see if I'm proven wrong. I'm just amazed because it really tells me that against the control deck, you're thinking that exile 3 a turn is going to get there in time.
It did for Natalia Drownyard.
That's true. So I guess in the control match,
But it's not just that. If you get this to continually go and they just don't deal with it, eventually you're going to hit a creature that you can play with it, and then you just bribery a card out of their deck, basically.
Okay, I guess I'm interested to see. My initial speculation is I'm not very impressed with this Planeswalker. It's cool. I really like the ability a lot. Limited, it's going to be absolutely fantastic since most decks are consisting of 15 to 19 creatures. You're looking at close to 50% of their deck is going to be creatures. So this card is, beyond the fact that they're running 40-card decks, everything about this card in Limited is absolutely over the top powerful. It's robbing them of both a lot of what their deck is made up of and their deck itself, which is smaller. So both aspects of this card in Limited are over the top strong. But in Constructed, even in, like Jake said, EDH, the Ultimate is a lot of fun. This card in EDH in general looks like a lot of fun because everybody's playing huge fatties. So for EDH and Limited, I think this card is really fun and good looking. But for Constructed, I'm really not convinced unless we're going to start seeing for sure a lot of decks that are running, at least 20 creatures. I'm not feeling super confident this card's going to do much for a control strategy. I think you made a decent point that it'll be decent in the control.
Control versus control, it's still very good. I'm just going to not deny you any answers you might have.
Take your Aetherling.
Sphinx's Revelation, not even getting a creature off of it.
If you do, though, that would be sick.
Yeah, getting rid of your kill conditions, but I do think that Aetherling enters under their owner's control.
Oh, okay, so you can't use the irrelevant ability. I see. All right. Well, then it's not as good, but still, that's cool. Okay. So anything else in that list that how many Aetherling do you think you'd probably put a couple in, right? I think I would.
I would want to, but I only own one, I think, right now.
I would at least put the one in.
I would put the one in for sure. I played it in Rug in Standard with it was like Nightshade Peddler is its Staticaster deck that I was playing toward the end.
Yep, I remember
that was a lot of fun. I put one into that, and it was it came down, and it would turn games around or end it really quickly. I mean, the Use It Staticaster thing with the interaction of Staticaster Nightshade Peddler was good enough to pretty much stop anybody's creature deck. So
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for this week. I just wanted to let you guys know what Jake and I are going to do. I really do think, I don't know if you're necessarily going on Fridays, but I'm going to try and go on Fridays once I've got my final red deck list. You kind of have the general idea of what I'm playing. Once I have that ready, I'm going to bring the camera or the phone again, and I'll record some more stuff and just keep you updated on how we're doing in real life, constructed Magic. So, Jake, you're probably planning to go.
I think I'm going to go actually to standard from now on until I get like a lot more cards.
We might miss a couple, but
Yeah.
I'm going to try and report it as often as I can. I kind of like the response those videos got, so they're fun to make too. Okay, that's it for this week, so check those videos out. Follow us on Twitter at SeemsGoodMagic. Live streams Tuesdays, Thursdays, 7 p.m. Central Time. There was a week that I didn't miss, but Twitch stopped recording or archiving my videos, so like I lost a week of videos, but I have it figured out now and it started to save again. So I believe Theros is coming online next week. Well, when you get this, it might even already be out by the time this podcast launches. I'm not sure. But I'm definitely going to be posting videos of that, so check those out. And yeah, I'm going to try and post videos of the Fridays, like I said. So I think that's it. Jake and I are still hard at work on the board game. I can give a quick little brief update on that. I feel like it's in a really good place. In fact, why don't we show the template?
Yeah.
So we'll show the viewers the template that we've got, because I do think it looks cool. Or this is just the first version of what we're going to be doing. But we can kind of run through what each thing means on this. So if you look at the card template we're looking at, it's a portrait, kind of like where the Magic card one is, a little bit more concave and centered. And then on the right of the portrait, you see 3 circles. So these are essentially like Magic. It's sort of the whole mana cost, power and
energy.
Yeah, power and toughness. In this game, it's attack and energy. Combat system works slightly different than Magic. It's more like every creature has Wither, sort of a thing. So it's almost like you're doing something like that. So when they're it's more like losing HP in an RPG or something like that. So each creature, or not every creature, but most units in the game have an action point ability. And action points are, in this game, essentially what mana was in Magic. But instead of playing land cards, you just accumulate a certain amount of action points every turn in combat. So you just have an amount of resources that you have to use every turn. But most units in the game have this action point ability, which they can use once per encounter, and that's here on the card too in the middle. And so the nice thing is, because you're only allowed to use them once per combat, we've been able to push the limit on how strong an ability is. So it's kind of cool. You get a lot of different units that have very powerful abilities, but they're balanced by the fact that you only get it once. And then this 3 thing on the bottom, these 3 little dots with a little window coming off of it. This is sort of the unique aspect of the game. It was formerly the combat modifier system, but we're calling it procking now. So if you've played RPGs, you know about the procs. It's you could be using a weapon or a buff is cast on you, and once in a while, every time you hit, or every once in a while when you hit, an ability is generated, and that's called a proc. So in this game, it's essentially the same thing, except we use dice to dictate when it happens, when a creature or a unit procs, whether it be an allied unit or an enemy unit. So we're really excited. If you don't know anything about the board game at all, it's planning on being a 1 to 4 player campaign cooperative game. So it's fully cooperative, and no dungeon master is needed, which is a really unique aspect of it too. Jake and I think the first article I wrote was about a Magic variant called the Horde variant. And that was sort of gave me inspiration to have a similar enemy setup system. I'm thrilled with where the game's at. I've had a few people play test it now with some really positive response. So I really think this is heading a good direction. It's a unique board game.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of games where you can play fully cooperatively. There's not a lot of games where you can play one player. So there's some unique aspects to it. Obviously, some number crunching on our parts is being facilitated right now. We're trying to make that work, and it's going to take some time, but it's in a really good place right now. We're also still on the hunt for more art. So Nathan Carson was someone who sent us pictures, and they were really amazing. Actually, I really liked them a lot.
Nice.
It would be nice if we could get some more art. If you're interested in submitting it, Mortarpod at SeemsGoodMagic.com. We'd be happy to credit you, amongst other things. So if you're interested in that, please email me. Feel free, and I'll respond. Okay, that's it for now. We'll update you on more as we learn it. But yep, I guess a short and sweet little podcast today, but that's all right. I'll see you guys later.